Welcome to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where we feature top leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry with your host, Drew Hendricks. Now, let's get started with the show.
Drew Hendricks here. I'm the host of the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where I talk with leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry, from tech companies that enable wineries to run at optimum efficiency, to today's guests, Jeff and Josh Daiter, who have made it their mission to create a cellar management program that ensures every bottle of wine in your collection can be quickly located when needed. Today's episode, it's sponsored by Barrels Ahead. At Barrels Ahead, we work with you to implement a one-of-a-kind marketing strategy, one that highlights your authenticity, tells your story, and connects you with your ideal customers. In short, we help wineries and craft beverage producers unlock their story to unleash their revenue. Go to barrelsahead.com today to learn more. Now, I want to give a big shout out to last week's guest, Joe Wagner from Copper Cane Wine and Provisions. Joe shared some great advice that he learned when he sold Meiomi, the Meiomi wine brand. This was the largest non-asset wine sale to date. After that, we talked about his vision for maintaining a portfolio of wineries across the West Coast while keeping them unique. If this is your first time tuning in, you'll want to go back and check out that episode. Now, I am super excited to talk today with the co-founders of InVintory, Jeff and Josh Daiter. Now, these guys have accomplished what many cellar management programs have tried to do and failed. Their patented technology allows users to quickly locate a bottle of wine in their cellar using 3D modeling technology. Now, Dr. Jeff Daiter, he's an avid wine enthusiast, and as his collection grew, he struggled to find his treasure vino hiding in his cellar and his fridge. Being a problem solver, he spent the last few years developing the InVintory platform. And he couldn't have done this without the help of his co-founder, Josh. Josh is a computer engineer that not only holds a master's degree in entrepreneurship, but a master's in artificial intelligence as well. Now, Josh is the chief product officer at InVintory and also loves to have a good glass of wine. Welcome to the show, Jeff and Josh.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Yeah. It's great to meet you.
Very happy. Thank you so much for being on. So you're coming to us from Toronto.
Yes, warm Toronto. Yes.
Oh, it's warm. It's actually cold here in California. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, we've had kind of a longer summer, it feels like. It's been not too cold lately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in Colorado last week at a digital agency experience, and it snowed.
Wow.
I didn't expect it to snow on September 30th. We were at about 10,000 feet, but man, the weather's been a little wacky.
I actually heard that it was supposed to be like the most brutal winter this year, or something like that. I was reading.
Really?
The fiercest winter, yeah.
You know, from what I saw in Colorado last week, I might agree. It was every single day was rain and snow. I think it's probably warm there now, but. So Jeff, tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll let Josh explain we'll let Josh explain about himself.
Yeah. So I'm a physician by profession, and spent my whole life practicing medicine, but also enjoying wine. I retired recently from medicine and had really planned on writing screenplays and drinking all the wine that I had accumulated over the years, only to find I couldn't find my wine in my cellar or my fridges. And this was frustrating. And I always say, well, the taste of wine should be complex. The enjoyment of wine should not be complex. Mm-hmm. There's no way I shouldn't be able to find the wine that I've collected. And this was the problem. And I scratched all my hair until it fell off. And those who can see me, I have no hair. But and I turned to Josh and I said, you've got to help me. I paid for all your education. You certainly got a lot. You've got to help me find my bottles in my cellar or fridge.
You owe them.
I do, I guess.
I like that. This probably isn't your slogan, but no wine left behind.
No wine left behind, exactly.
No, it can be a little secondary slogan.
So, Josh, tell me about your background.
Yeah, so I'm a computer engineer. I graduated from Queen's University, and while I was there, I've always been into entrepreneurship and business. You know, watching Dragon's Den, Shark Tank, always into those kinds of shows, and just wishing that I could be up there and pitching my own business. So in university, I actually tried to start an app with one of my buddies who was in the same program as me. And we kind of just taught ourselves how to build an app. And from there, we learned. Jeff actually gave us a little bit of seed money. We learned from the school of hard knocks how to go out and sell something and build something and have that whole experience. Unfortunately, we did not get as far as we did with InVintory, but I guess you could say it was a launching point for us. And then I decided, I actually want to study this going into my master's degree. So I did a master's of entrepreneurship where I learned, how to raise money, how to sell, how to just all the business stuff that I feel like I needed to fill in the gaps with. And then I said, you know what, I love school so much, not actually, but I'm going to go even further and do a master's of artificial intelligence because it's sort of a hot new space. And I love that whole area and learning how to build models and predict things. And I just think it's cool. So after that, started InVintory with Jeff because as mentioned, he needed an app to help him locate his wine. And I like wine too. I love drinking wine. So yeah, it just works out that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I want to, we're going to dive into InVintory, but I also hold a master's in entrepreneurship. My background's in philosophy, and then I went into a wine store and sold wine and ran a agency before, but I realized I had zero business experience. So I thought I'd go back and learn it. Josh, how has that entrepreneurship degree helped you?
You know what? I was actually going to ask you the exact same question because I feel like entrepreneurship is one of those things that I'm still debating if it can be taught or not, or if it's something that you have to go out and learn. And I feel like to business, there's definitely those like pen to paper, open the textbook, learn this kind of thing. But there's a lot of things you actually don't learn. And I feel like everyone's journey through business is so different, circumstantially, what skill set you have and what you bring, like everything's so different. So I'm still on that journey to discovering whether the degree was useful or useless. And so I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I can see that because a lot of my students or colleagues, a lot of the people in the program, they took on the marketing track, and I'm not sure they learned as much. You already had the kind of the science and the computer background and the math. I philosophy at a Greek. I didn't have any real math. So I really did a real finance track for entrepreneurship. And where it really helped me was deal structuring, writing business plans, and really figuring out how to build a company so that you could actually exit and then have the right lingo when you're talking to VCs and investors. So for me,
I think that's definitely where it helps. I would agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it. So the idea of InVintory, Jeff, you're losing bottles, you're frustrated, you want to find that wine. How did it start?
Well, it actually started simply by me expressing my frustration. Josh and I were on a family vacation down in Mexico, and Josh said, this looks simple. I could put together an app and you could inventory. And I said, yeah, sure. You couldn't do it. Anyways, he did put it together. I don't know how he put it together over a weekend or so. I showed it to my friends who were also collectors of wine enthusiasts, and they loved it. So we said, you know what, for a whim, why don't we just put it on the App Store and see what happens? And within a few short months, we had 20,000 downloads and a 4.7 rating on the App Store. So I said, you know what, maybe we'll do this. I mean, obviously there's a need out there. I didn't know wine was so big. I didn't know there were so many people who were having the same kind of problems I was having. So basically I said, let's do this. And I ended up taking 80 people from the 20,000 people, creating what was called a Premier Cru group. And I said, let me just pick your brains. Let me listen to what you really want to see in a collector's app. And we spent 2 years really listening to them, developing all we could in terms of proper UI and proper UX, and really trying to come out with the best platform for wine collectors we could. And we hope we've hit the mark, but we're just beginning. We're iterating as fast as we can talk.
Yeah, no, and that's talking about iteration. Like version done is better than version none. Too many people just wait too long to release something, and by then almost a lot of times it never gets released. So it's so great that you've got that kind of continuous improvement process from the start.
Yeah, going back to like entrepreneurship, I think that's a huge problem a lot of entrepreneurs have is, just having the resilience to see it through, because as idea people, you want to just go to the next thing. You see something new, especially if you're maybe halfway done a project and you've hit a roadblock, you're like, oh, I just want to go build this next thing. But you just have to, put your head down, see it through and stick with it and go forward.
Oh, absolutely. So Jeff, what was the feedback you got from your collector society?
Well, the biggest feedback was that many of them were on an app that exists right now, but it was an older app, hadn't iterated in probably 20 years. And I said, I knew exactly what you were talking about. And my goal now was I think there's room for many platforms in the space, but to not do the same, do it a bit different, and offer people something more. And they came to me and said, "Well, we want a better user experience. We want better functionality in the app, and this ability that you're talking about, Jeff, about finding a wine. Well, if I can find a wine in a virtual world, either through augmented reality or through a 3D reconstructive model, that would be a game changer for me because I have the same problem you do finding my bottle." So this was the impetus for building it. It was the idea to say, let's start with becoming the best collection app out there. But we also have different pillars in our company. We want to engage our users, create a social network for people who share common ideas about wine, and then also enhance the learning experience around wine. So we're really across these three pillars: management, engage, and learning. And that's really our focus.
Well, that's a good focus. And you've got some pretty, I mean, your bigger competitors would be Cellar Tracker and Vinvino. And I
Yes.
saw that you've got a very unique, you can import your wines, which is the huge barrier to entry. A lot of people, like, they're locked into the system. They got all their wines in there and they're hesitant to move to the next platform. I'm
Yes.
sure that helped adoption.
Well, that was the biggest problem, onboarding people's collections. I mean, that is the hesitancy. So Josh was brilliant enough to come up with a whole idea where we could import both Cellar Tracker and Vivino. Now, we don't really compete against Vivino so much. I view them as a discovery app. I think they've done very well where they are. People take their app, they walk into a liquor store or a bottle shop, they take a photo, it gives a crowdsource rating, they say, I'm going to buy this. They have gotten into selling wine lately, which is a little bit of a different sort of business direction.
Mhm.
Seller Tracker, I envy them. He's done extremely well. I respect the gentleman. I can never knock somebody who's done what they've done in the
He,
space.
he has done an amazing job. Back when I
Yeah,
had VineCat, my seller management program, he was already dominating it. And it just,
yeah,
we went with the food pairing side and he dominated the seller tracking side.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you've
So
got,
actually, Drew, I'm going to flip this on you for 1 second. I want to hear a little bit more about VineCat and sort of where you got to with that and what the reception was.
we didn't get adoption. We definitely didn't get 20,000 users. I'll tell you that. It was pretty much my biggest learning experience, and version done is better than version one.
Right.
We got a version out, but I spent way too much time my goal for VineCat was someone could look in their cellar, because I come from the wine store background. And my goal was to look at my cellar, pick a wine, and then see exactly what kind of foods would go with it. And vice versa. You've got a different type of meal. You could pull up the amount of wines in your cellar, and it would recommend the right wine at the right time for you.
Right.
So for me, it wasn't so much the collecting aspect. It wasn't so much the community aspect. It was more like a cellar som type thing.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I actually really commend you for solving that problem because it's something that's so challenging for us still to recommend food that pairs with certain wine, because at the end of the day, we've talked to a lot of somms about this and somms in our team. It's really what you like and what your palate is that does pair well with this wine. So I think it's a challenge for us for sure. We do our best based on just what generally people think, but yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
I mean, we're at the point now where you can filter down on your collection, and you can filter down on, okay, I'm having a red tonight. It's a cab. It's from Napa. I'm going to have more than 2 of these bottles. It's this price point, and I'm going to pair it with beef or fish or poultry or veal. The food categories are very generic, and yet our psalms say, no, I want you to pair it with this particular mushroom sauce or this particular stew. So we're trying to figure out if we can import these sorts of really food dishes with the wine pairing. Interestingly enough, we have one collector, as a sidebar, who pairs his wine with music.
Oh, I like that.
So he's always contacting us and saying, I just have this Barolo. It's from here. It's from there. And I just put this song to it. Take a listen to this. And I'm going, wow, that's fascinating.
It's funny you should mention that. I just got back. On the way back from Colorado, I went to Caduceus Cellars. So the owner of it is Maynard James Keenan, lead singer of Tool.
Yes.
And all of their tasting notes have recommended songs on it.
Wonderful. I think
Wow.
that's the next pairing solution. That's going to
Yes.
We've actually talked, not to get technical here, but we've talked about like a Spotify integration and how cool that would be if you were to
Oh,
pull
that
up
would be fantastic.
a wine on inventory and you could see like, here's a Spotify playlist that goes with this wine. I think that would be pretty cool.
That would be great. That would be the next step. So yeah, back with VineCat, the vision was a little grand for the time. It was back in 2007. So I think today it would have. There's a little more tools in the chest, and it was really dependent on the user. It was overly dependent on the user filling out a complex set of tasting notes, so it would learn their likes and dislikes. It fit the time.
It is.
Back to this. Tell me about this location-based patent that you have.
Yeah, so we actually started off with something called VinR, which was trademarked and patented. VinR was Vin and augmented reality, and this is what we want to do. In fact, we have the technology. I use it in the cellar, where you would be looking through your phone at your cellar or your fridge, and the light would shine on the particular bottle you were after. We actually wanted to launch this, and then, of course, what happened? COVID happened, and where we had to launch this with people going into people's homes to set them up with the AR, it wasn't as intuitive. Josh, again, and I'll give him full credit for this, had the brainchild of VinLocate, creating a 3D model of your wine cellar or wine fridge that showed up on your phone, and it would give accurate pinpoint placement. So if you said it was on the left wall, in the third column, the second row, too deep, the light would show you exactly where it is. So now I just go upstairs, I want to find my bottle, I type it in, I press locate, I show whoever I want to go down to my cellar and get it for me. They know exactly where it is. You're not there for more than 20 seconds in the cold environment of a cellar, and boom, the bottle comes up and you're enjoying it.
That's fantastic. Josh,
yeah, it's funny.
How does that work? I mean, walk the listeners through this, how this works. This is amazing.
Yeah, so I was actually, as Jeff was speaking, this popped into my head. I don't know if you remember, Jeff, but when we came up with the idea to use augmented reality to find a bottle, we were in Florida at the kitchen table. And I remember I was just using this. I downloaded a bunch of AR apps because like I was really into that space, and you can go on the app store and go to like the AR section and just download all the apps and play around with them. And I remember I saw one where you could place an object in 3D space through your phone. Like you just tap on your phone and you can put like a circle on the ground. And as you walk around, that circle actually stays in the same spot as you're looking through your camera, like through your phone. And I remember thinking like, wow, not to sidebar again, but we spent a lot of time looking at RFID for locating bottles, and that's a whole other story we can talk about after and why that didn't work. But then I said, wow, this AR could be the actual solution to finding bottles in a cellar. Like we can, place a pin in the real world and have it stay there as you walk around. Like, why can't we do that, 1,000 times with bottles? So essentially that's how it works. You have to like scan your room so that we can build this 3D map and understand your surroundings. And then we've actually built this. The patented part is where you can use I don't want to get this wrong. I think it's I'm not even going to say it because I'm going to get it wrong. Whatever the device in your phone is that measures like angle and gyroscope, the gyroscope in your phone, you can actually tap the corners of your cellar and you build a wall in 3D space. And then we know how big that wall is, how many slots there are and all that. And we just populate everything. So that's how VinR would work.
That's amazing. So from a user's perspective, they tap at the walls, it's created all the slots. How does it figure out like if there's 2 slots deep or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this was why we built VinLocate, because we actually learned that having a user understand what they're doing, launching right into AR probably isn't the best experience for someone who has never seen an augmented reality platform ever in their life. So we said, you know what, we're going to build first a 3D model so that the user can wrap their head around the concept of I'm building a wall. The wall is, 18 rows, 3 columns or whatever it may be, and it's 3 deep, and they can see that through inventory today that exists. AR brings that to the next level where they're basically just placing that wall in the real world.
Okay.
So they're taking an already pre-built wall and just layering that into the 3D world through augmented reality.
Very interesting. So I can definitely vision a wine cellar with the single bottles. What about the old school guys that just kind of store cases or mixed bottle cases?
Right. So that's me. So I have both configurations where individual bottles go in individual positions, but then I have bins
Oh,
where we put cases. So we allow people to put wine in sort of a bin location without defining exactly where within that bin it is, because a bin is where you're just going to put 12 bottles or a whole
mhm,
case. So it's just a mass storage area. So even in some of the nicer wine coolers or wine fridges these days, usually at the bottom, it might be almost like a bin where people
mhm.
just pile in their wine, but on the racks, they're putting them in individual spots. So that's how we deal with that whole bin issue.
And that's exactly the way we did it in 1995. When I was in the wine store, we used to sell cellar wines for a lot of the people in San Francisco.
Mhm.
Some of these guys would have a couple hundred cases, but it'd all be in just cardboard boxes, and we'd
Yeah,
have each box numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the Excel sheet we would have box 1/12, so it would be the first one
right,
slash 8, so it'd be the
right.
first row in the
Right. All
first
we've
section.
tried to do in inventory is mimic what happens in the real world on a
Mhm.
digital platform. I mean, people want to have their wine cellar, or many people do, on their mobile device or at the comfort of their desktop, see their whole wine cellar. But
Mhm.
one of the beauties of inventory with this 3D model, we can also see where you don't have bottles yet placed. So if I'm in the local bottle
Oh,
shop or wine store, and I say, should I buy this bottle, or where can I put this? How many bottles can I buy? It tells me right away how much I can spend and where I can go and so on. So we're very into not having hoarding. We don't want people hoarding wine where
uh,
now it's working its way up the staircase. We want it sort of in the cellar, resting in its right spot.
oh, that's great. So, what's your vision? I mean, so we've got syncing with Spotify is a long vision out. What's you just launched? So today is start of October. You just launched in the United States and had a tremendous reception for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll take this question. I mean, it's really amazing how the vision has evolved since we started. Back when I built the first app, the vision was just to help Jeff. That was the vision. Like, it's just so small
It was
and
myopic. It was a myopic
very
vision.
myopic. And then fast forward all the way to today, it's we want to be the hub for wine enthusiasts and collectors. We want inventory to be the digital place to go
Mhm.
for anyone who just absolutely loves wine. That's our grand vision for inventory.
Right. But once we sort of get through being experts at the management of wine, we really want to engage that wine enthusiast. We want to create a social platform that's responsible and respectful. We want circles. We want people talking about community reviews. We want people to become better educated on the wine they buy. I was out yesterday playing golf with somebody, and they asked me what I did. I told them about inventory. They said, "Yeah, but Jeff, my problem is I go into a shop and I don't know what to buy. Do I look at the little placard on the wine bottle that says Christie's favorite, or do I go in there with a preconceived knowledge of how I'm going to be an educated shopper?" So we want people to know what they're buying, to go in there and say, this is not only a wine that's in my price point, or a wine that I think I've heard of. It's a wine that I know I will enjoy. So we're taking the wealth of data we're accumulating. Right now, we're following 1 million bottles in people's cellars. We want to follow 2 million bottles, 3 million bottles,
Mhm.
anonymize the data, and use machine learning, of which Josh is an expert in, and then have a true recommender. Use lookalike sellers. If I have 1,000 bottles, there's 100 other people like me who have the same lookalike seller, but may have 2 or 3 different bottles than I do. And it would recommend a bottle to me that I don't have that they have. And it almost guarantees that I would like it. It's not based on price. It's not based on moving a bottle off the shelf from pressure from a winery or a distributor. It's about what I actually will like.
That's a great angle to take. A lot of them are based like on ratings and kind of the
Mhm.
Netflix model where these people have watched so many different movies just like you. You're probably going to want to watch this movie.
Right.
Now, do you have a rating mechanism in your
Well, we talked about ratings. Ratings have been somewhat controversial. I mean, to distill a wine down into a number that one expert says it's this, another expert says it's that. I think it diminishes the wine. I think if you look at famous wine critics like Suckling or Parker, I think you need to read what they said about the wine, not the score that they've attached to the wine.
Mm-hmm.
It really diminishes it. So we're trying to stay away from ratings. We have community reviews where we allow people to write a review, and then we allow, much like Reddit, to upvote that review. And so it gets to the top of the pile. Or if you're a noted expert, like a somm or a wine master or a wine maker, we allow that note to live at the very top. So we're hoping people will type in the wine that they want to buy, look at the community reviews, look at the most relevant review that's been upvoted the most times, and say, that resonates with me, or that doesn't resonate with me. I'm going to buy it or not buy it.
That's great. I'm very happy, like over the last few years, that kind of the rating hound type thing has really been played down. And back to VineCat, how we got way over complicated in what we were doing. I had a section on the weather, because the weather totally affects the way a wine tastes.
Wow.
And even back when I was selling wine, I'd sell like a great wine, and then the customer would come back and go, I hated it. I'm like, well, was it cloudy outside? No, I drank it on a 98-degree day. I'm like, well, that probably wasn't the right day to drink that heavy Zinfandel. You probably needed a chilled Beaujolais. Try it again in the winter. So you're so right. Like, you could give a wine top scores in that particular perfect lunch wine, 72 degrees, and then try it skiing, and it's just horrible.
100%. I agree with you. The experience of wine is just as important to us as anything else about that wine. So I've had the exact same wine, same vintage, from the same case in 2 different settings. And I've wondered, what is wrong with this wine when it was just so fantastic the other night, No,
that's great that you guys recognize that. So it's going back to the early days of starting this. How did you guys ramp up to 20,000 users?
Yeah, it was we put it on the App Store. We basically said, where should we even market this? We put it on, and Josh, again, he can speak to this, but it was really trying to use Instagram and Facebook as marketing drivers. However, they're really passive drivers of people's behavior. You have to be on Facebook, Instagram, get an ad thrown at you, and then, maybe I'll go click at that ad. Where now we sort of are figuring we will go to more search engine, where people actually type in wine fridge, wine cooler, wine cellar, type in a wine, and then the advertisement will come up. But at the initial aspect of it, we went on Facebook, we went on Instagram, we talked to people, went to wine clubs, and just started amassing a following of people who had the same problem. So to say that it just happened overnight, I wouldn't say. I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that we threw it up there and the next morning we woke up and there were 20,000 users.
Yeah.
No, it was we were getting about 1,000 people a week. It was pretty awesome.
And before we actually did put some money behind advertising, we did spend a lot of time building it inside and making sure that what we were building people would generally like. So we didn't, take that first prototype that I built on the family vacation and just threw that up on the App Store and said, anyone download this. We made sure to really take our time so that we were going to go out with something we were proud of. But something we actually learned with the Facebook and Instagram ads is a lot of it is just, it's feeding the top of the funnel, and the people coming through, it may be a great cost per install or a great acquisition, but the retention of those people were actually much lower than if we were to do what Jeff is saying, like more action driven advertising, like search or getting people in the right context. I think works a lot better than just, showing someone an ad and then they go download it and realize, wait a second, I didn't even know that this was for my collection. I thought this was just a wine app that did something else. So we want to make sure that our messaging is really clear, and that where we advertise is also part of that.
Oh, that's fantastic. So to distill that down into advice, and some advice of the next person wanting to do an app, what would you tell them?
I just did this on the weekend. Someone had called me, had seen our app and wanted the same advice. And I said, what you really have to do, whether it be an app or a web app or an Android, whatever it is, put out an MVP. Just you can often suffer from founder's delusion, thinking your idea is the next big unicorn out there. You have to put out an MVP, test it, see if there's an audience for your product. If it is, then pour the money into it, then go down that path. But don't make the mistake of putting a lot of money towards something that really nobody else is interested other than your own self deluded mind.
Yeah, that's really a great point. And I would also add to that don't undervalue design. People love to look at something that is nice. Obviously, function first, make sure that it works. But the second you layer on good design, it really makes your product stand out from the rest of them. So I would say early on, whether if you know your idea is going to work and you put out that MVP and the concept is sound, go out and hire a designer, whether that be on Fiverr or, you know, any freelance design website or someone you know, and have them really sit down with you, spec out the product, and make sure that it's built for a good user experience.
Right.
That's great advice.
I have to give Josh credit for that because, you know, he put out that fledgling app, as I mentioned at the beginning. And in my eye, I said, hey, that's good. What do you mean we got to hire designers? I'm not spending money on design. We don't need designers. And of course, as soon as the designer came in, I thought, oh, had we missed the boat prior, designers are everything in this game. So
yeah, shout out to all of our designers at InVintory. They just kill it with us. So
yeah,
that's great. How big of a team do you have right now?
So we have right now 12 developers, 2 designers, Android developers, Unity developers, iOS developers. I'm most proud of them, but I'm also equally proud of, we have a team of 18 sommeliers that work with us constantly. My whole goal was during the time of COVID when people were somms who fell out of work. I thought that's not, if I could in some way engage them, employ them, keep them earning some money, that would be a good thing. And it turned out to be such a fantastic thing that now I'm thinking I'm going to keep them on board and get more somms involved in this app. I'm not trying to create a platform that replaces somms. I'm trying to create a platform that engages somms so that they feel part and connected to this. I also went out and I hired 4 people from an autism society and tried to employ people who basically couldn't get employment but had a unique neurodiverse skill around database and image detection and so on. And so they work full-time with us. So we're a team now of about, if we include everybody, over 20 people or so. So it's a pretty large team. Funny enough, over this day and age with again, this pandemic, we haven't really met that often. We meet every morning on stand-up. We meet for coffee and creations, for drinks and demos on Fridays. We talk every day. Last week, I brought everybody into the office as kind of as a one-day thing. We rented space and brought everybody into this office. We didn't get a stitch of work done. Everyone sort of talked to each other. You know, I thought, this is a disaster. You know, I can't have an office setting. This is, you know,
get back on Slack.
Yes, exactly.
What do you guys use for your morning stand-ups?
Oh, we use Zoom. We're big Zoomers. Every time someone sends us a Microsoft Teams invite, it breaks Jeff's computer and he gets really mad.
I look foolish. Here I am with a tech company. I can't get my mic to work. It just overtakes my mic for some reason.
It's the same with me with Google Meet. Whenever I have to get on a Google Meet, I don't know why. I use the full Google suite for everything. We all use it for everything. But for some reason, whenever I get on Google Meet, there's something about it that I just can't do it. And I look like it's the first time I've ever been on a video.
Right, exactly. I have the same problem.
In fact, I was on the phone with a Google Ads person the other day, and we had to switch to Zoom.
Oh, really? Wow.
He didn't like that.
Wow, that's embarrassing.
But yeah, we're so dependent on technology. I mean, coming into this from getting on Zoom to using Slack to using Clubhouse to using all these good tech companies to basically help us navigate through this wonderful world of living independently and trying to put up a ticket and you know, it also goes from a model of whereby people, you know, inside an office, you see somebody, you see if they're working. We've changed our whole sort of gestalt around that work philosophy. We have 2-week sprints. Everyone has to get their work done in 2 weeks. It's obvious when we get to coffee and creations or drinks and demos. Coffee and creations are our morning demonstration. Drinks and demos are Friday evening demonstration. But they've got to come with that sprint complete. And we don't give them too much or too little. Josh is in charge of all of that. They agree to the work prior. But if someone's not doing the job, it's obvious. But I have to say, in our team, in the day and age of when tech companies are being stolen from companies, I mean, down in Silicon, they're reaching all over for tech people. We've not lost a single developer from our team. They believe in the product, they love the product, and they're fully engaged with us, which is just awesome. It's not all about what I pay them; it's about the product and the team around them.
If you can find a mission-driven employee base that believes in the product, I mean, that's kudos.
Yeah,
that's a lot right there.
Well, one of our top back-end developers, he contacted us. I didn't know who he was. He contacted us and said, you know, I'm a developer. but he loves wine. He was on the platform, loves wine. So I said, "Who are you?" And
He just messaged us on Instagram.
Yeah. So we met him. Turned out to be what I think is probably one of the few people who love wine as much as he does, and is a highly skilled, almost savant back-end developer. So, and now he works with us. He's fully committed to this. So the fact that he likes wine also keeps him engaged.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So talk about wine. When you're not developing the best seller management program out there, what are you drinking?
Well, drinking a wine is near and dear to my heart. I'll have to say that my wine taste has evolved over time and then come around in a complete circle. When I was young, I was a big white wine drinker, as many people can probably relate to. Mm-hmm. Then I moved, of course, probably because of the huge marketing pressure, into the Napa Cabs, the Napa Valley wines. And in fact, a lot of my cellar still has a lot of that. But as wine taste evolves, you get into the Bordeauxs and the Brunellos and the Burgundies. And that's where I am sitting right now, sort of loving these earthy tones and these complex wines that have aged beautifully. Although I'm coming full circle back into some Chablis, into some Sancerres, and trying out some Riesling. So people ask me what wine I like, and I embarrassingly say, or maybe I say, I like all wine. I don't have really a favorite. You put a glass of wine in front of me, it's just a different experience for me.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
That's a great answer, actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have the hardest time trying to figure out when people ask me what I'm drinking. Like last night, I really, really enjoyed the sparkling Grenache from Merkin Cellars that I picked up in Arizona. Comes in a can. It was fantastic. Mm-hmm. How about you, Josh? What are you drinking these days?
Yeah, so I feel like my journey with wine is a little unique. I got more into wine because of InVintory, and I discovered my favorite bottle because I was outside drinking with a friend, and Jeff came out and said, "You should try this bottle of Submission." And we opened it up, and we both had a sip, and we were like, "Oh my God, this is like the best wine ever." It was so sweet. It was so fruity.
It was a big bowl of jam.
It was a bowl of jam. Oh, nice. And that just shows how complex my taste in wine is at that time, which was not that long ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And we had 3 bottles of it that night. Like, we loved it so much. And then I kept drinking it. And then I started to hate it because it just became way too sweet for me. Like, I was like, oh, I don't want this sweetness. It's kind of like making my mouth feel weird. So then I started going into more, well-balanced wines, more complex wines, some French wines. I do like white wine, but I'm still early in my journey with wine. So we'll see where I end up, but I'm sure I'll take a similar path as Jeff.
Where Josh is different than I am is, people put a wine to their nose, and I struggle. Like, I struggle to think. People say, "Oh, I smell this apricot," or I go, you smell that? I don't smell a thing usually. Josh, though, from an early age, he's been a coffee connoisseur. He can smell coffee. He can taste coffee. He likes his coffee black because he doesn't want to taint coffee with any other.
I like the raw taste. Yeah.
I do too.
I think his taste in wine is much more sophisticated than mine. I'm like, just give me wine. I like it. I hate to say that. It sounds poor for somebody who's with a wine app, but I just like wine. I'm not embarrassed to say necessarily, but Josh has a much more sophisticated palate that I think he can challenge. I'll never get there. I think my taste buds have been destroyed over the years, but he's early in his journey, and I envy the fact that he might be able to sit next to people and pick out the grape or the domain even.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, I love beer too. Like, coffee is the same as beer for me. Like, I love the taste of different beers, and I can very much find the difference in taste and smell and whatever when I drink it. And I just got into Guinness actually about a year ago, and I love Guinness now.
Oh, yeah. No, last week I had it was a barrel aged Imperial IPA from Carver Brewing Company up in Colorado, and it was mind blowing. Like,
oh wow,
the whole variety in beers. It's a whole nother. And I'm also into bourbon, but just the whole different tastes and complexities. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, people have talked to us about they collect beer. Beer doesn't have the lifespan, of course, that wine does, but certainly with liquors like bourbon, like Scotch, especially, whether we'd start putting Scotches on the app, if people are collecting them, and Scotch is so heavily traded amongst Scotch lovers. So we've turned our mind's eye to that, whether we want to, we really want to stay in our lane, but we recognize that it is a slight crossover, but we're thinking about it. I mean, it's been so hard in wine, getting every wine in there and getting the hundreds of thousands of wines that people, the journey.
It's a Pandora's box. We say that.
Right, exactly. There's just so many liquors out there. It's crazy.
You kind of have to know when to say no. I mean, if someone have a beer collection, you're kind of on borrowed time.
Right.
It's not many you want to age.
But
And
some
then-
people do. We've had those emails come to us and say, "Listen, I got a lot of beer in my basement. I want to inventory." I said, "Just drink it. Just drink it."
got a 1977 Coors Light.
Yes.
Holding on to that one.
Yes, hold on. It'll be worth something one day.
So, guys, as we're wrapping down, I always like to express gratitude. And is there anybody you really who you admire right now in the wine industry?
Yeah, this may sound odd coming from me, but it is genuine. I do admire Eric Levine. We talked about him at the beginning. I knowing the battle I've just gone through to create this app, I can only imagine where he's been. And again, kudos to him. Kudos to what he's created. Kudos to the community that he's brought into his platform. And I never have liked the idea of competing with somebody in terms of that. I think again the space is large. I would love to shake his hand one day and just give him my best.
Well, that's very good. And there's definitely different apps for different folks. I mean, there's definitely for many seller management apps. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, this might be a kind of a weird answer as well, but I actually admire all these athletes getting into wine. For people who need to train so hard and perform at their best, and they still have time to enjoy wine and sit down with friends and have those experiences. I admire them for doing that. And a lot of them are making careers out of it. So kudos to them.
No, that's fantastic. Now, guys, where can people find more about you?
So they can certainly go to our website, www.inventorywines.com. That sort of goes to our website. We're on Instagram. They can find us on the App Store at InVintory.
You can connect with both of us on LinkedIn, actually.
Yeah,
we're both on LinkedIn.
Both on LinkedIn.
Oh.
Happy to connect with people directly. I love meeting people who love wine. I mean, I just finished a Zoom call with a collector just before this, and I could have spent 3 hours with them on the phone. It was just great on Zoom. Great to speak with them.
Oh, that's fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Best
Had a
of
great
luck,
time.
everyone. Thank you.
You guys have a great day.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.